Welcome back to our universe. I'm Andrew, and today I'm playing Avatar: The Last Airbender, Crossroads of Destiny, a cooperative adventure game by Prospero Hall. This is the Book of Challenges, and I'm going to be playing challenge number 1 today, which is Escape Prince Zuko. So this can be played as a campaign game, which is what I intend to do. It can also be played just any individual scenario. Each one has a difficulty rating here. So if you're playing a scenario that is later in the campaign, so to speak, you could upgrade your characters quickly and be up to speed on playing whatever scenario you want. But this is the introductory scenario that I believe will kick off every campaign. I'm going to be playing a 2-player game with Aang and Katara, of course, by myself. There are 4 characters, so you can also play as Sokka and Toph. Each character has a little acrylic standee, so they've got like a clear effect with the character looking cool in color. So these are the 2 I have on hand. Then again, of course, there's also Sokka and Toph. It says, Prince Zuko has captured Aang and set course for the Fire Nation, where he will deliver the Avatar to reclaim his honor. Aang attempts to escape, but is cornered by Zuko and his Fire Nation troops on the ship's deck. As the battle heats up, the rest of Team Avatar arrives to help Aang. Then you can see we've got our main objective, which is to remove all Fire Nation soldiers and benders, as well as the bonus objectives to defeat all Fire Nation soldiers and benders, rather than just removing them, and lower Prince Zuko's strength to infinity, which sounds daunting. Over here we can see the enemy's strength tracks, which are effectively their health, and they can get lowered down to the bottom here, and you can see the one on the right, that's Zuko. It drops to infinity. He can never actually be defeated, but if you get him down to there, he'll still be on the board, but you'll have achieved that objective. Everything else I think we can figure out as we go along. So let's start out the Escape Prince Zuko challenge by setting up the board. We got Zuko, 2 firebenders, Fire Nation soldier here and here. You can also see the pre-printed element spaces. So these element tiles will start out at certain places on the board. And even though I haven't started playing yet, that seems like one of the cooler features of this game is that in addition to being a tactical skirmish, we're going to be having elements on the board that the characters get to move around and play with. There's also starting positions for our characters. We can put them anywhere in the green area. And the example in the rulebook had Katara here and Aang here. It didn't say that was strictly a recommendation, but I'm going to go ahead and do that. Since I'm playing a 2-player game, I'm going to put the strength of the enemies here on these 2-player positions rather than all the way at the top. And according to the rules, each character or each player is going to have one of these tokens, the White Lotus tiles, that would be shuffled around and mixed up, and then you would take your turns in a random order each round. I don't like shuffling up 2 tiles and trying to play a shell game with myself. So I'm just going to roll a die. I will have Aang go first on odd because he's a little odd. 6 will be even. There'll be Katara going first for this round. I'll put their tokens here on their head because it's funnier that way. Actually, maybe we should take a look at the player board here. So they're a little bit bigger than card size, but we can do a quick adjustment. Hopefully some of that shows up, but we got Katara. Got this little marker here that's going to indicate she's starting with 8 strength, and then we can slide that down as she loses strength. If she ever gets to 4 strength, if she gets down that low, once per scenario, she will get a wound, which is a card off camera here. This stack of wounds is cards that you can't use. They just clog up your deck. I think some people will call this a deck building game, so if you're familiar with that term, a bit of an analog there if you've familiar with wounds in some other deck building games. I wouldn't personally call this a deck building game, but that's beside the point. Of course, if she gets down to 0, all the players will lose. So she would be eliminated and the players lose the challenge. She also has an ability here, since we're zoomed in, element of change. After she moves a water tile through a hero or enemy, she may place them on top of that tile. So basically she can wash people around, throw them around with her water bending. And then over here, you can see this is her icon. And these are the basic actions she can do by spending cards. This is a move action. She can spend 1 card to move 1 space. This is, I actually had to look that one up real quick. That's a range attack. So if she discards 2 cards for no other effect, she can make a range attack to do 1 damage to an enemy who is basically in a line from her. And that is an interact. So by discarding 2 cards, she can interact with something. In this case, the interact is that this rule here tells us we can interact with enemies to move them 1 space, including into impassable spaces, which would remove them from the challenge. So basically we can move them 1 space and throw them off the boat. And if I'm understanding things correctly, that would be a way of removing them without defeating them. So if we want the bonus, I don't actually want to throw them off the boat, which is a shame because that sounds fun. So I've shuffled up Katara's 10 card starting deck, and I'm going to draw 5 cards to start her turn. Technically, I should have drawn Aang's starting hand first, but probably won't matter. And I got 3 of this basic card. This is a basic Katara card. It's got art, it's got flavor text, and that's about it. This S means it is one of her starting cards. Each character, if you open the box, you're going to see a bunch of cards for each character. A lot of them are not starting cards. They're cards you can use to level up your character for during the course of the campaign or for more difficult challenges. But these 10 with the S are her starter cards. She says, I will never ever turn my back on people who need me. And it doesn't do anything. So, but that's because we looked at these basic actions. We can discard these cards to do those basic actions. But we've also got a couple cards that are not the text list cards. We have an Appa. Every character has an Appa in their starting deck. Katara and one other hero each move 1. And we've also got a Momo. When discarded to do a basic action, he counts as 2. You know what? Maybe I do want to look at my Aang cards just to plan ahead. So I think I'll have Katara start with Appa. Katara and another hero each move 1. And I'm going to have her move 1 space and move Aang 1 space. And the element tiles are not blocking. So any characters can share spaces with elements. Elements can share spaces with each other. Appa's done, so I'll put that in her discard pile. Oh, and actually, I wanted to move her diagonally. Because you can move diagonally. It's no extra cost in movement in Crossroads of Destiny. And that will put her in line, in a straight line, to be able to shoot somebody with her ranged attack. So let's play Momo for a basic attack to do, counts as 2 cards. So we can use her ranged attack, which requires discarding 2 cards, to shoot for 1. And that's going to hit the Fire Nation soldier. And you might see that there are 2 Fire Nation soldiers, but only 1 Fire Nation soldier track. And that's because they share a pool of strength. So the Fire Nation soldiers as a group have now taken 1. I don't know what to expect out of the enemy deck. I actually haven't really looked at the enemy deck. After both Katara and Aang have taken their turns, the enemies are going to do something. And I don't know what they're going to do. So I don't know how much danger I'm putting myself in here. But I'm going to play 2 cards to do another range attack and just whittle away at them. If I can clear off both the Fire Nation soldiers, that would be great. But with just 1 card left in hand, she can move once. I don't know if I want to, but let's move her once toward this water here, just in case that matters. Now we've got Aang. So actually I need to take Katara's tile and flip it over to show that she is done. And we can take a look at close-up Aang's ability here. Air Nomad says as a basic action, he can discard 1 card to place an air tile anywhere. So that seems like a good effect. Although air tiles don't do anything inherently, but he does have the ability to key off them. I've seen off this opening hand here. Now different maps will have different setups of these elements, but at least in this case, there are 2 of each on the board, and that leaves 1 of each off the board. These are available, so if Aang wants to place another air, he can. And if he wanted to place another air, but 3 were already on the board, he could move 1 from somewhere else to place the new one. Effectively the same tile, just moving it around. So I'm thinking I want to use this card, Staff Twirl. If he is close to an air tile, close attack 2. So I'd like to do a close attack 2 because he can hit everybody around him. Thinking it'd be great if I could get him to like this space. Again, I don't know if that's putting him in a ton of danger. I'd need to move 1, 2, 3 to get there. And I would need to be close to an air tile. So I need 3 movement, plus I need to bend some air out and then still have the twirl. Well, I can do exactly that. I've got 3 of his basic cards. So again, no effect, just artwork and flavor text. 3 of those can move him. Well, let's move him twice and create air with that air nomad ability. This seems like a good spot. And then we will play his Appa to move Aang and 1 other hero. Put him to here and maybe just put Katara onto the water. That might not be a good idea. You never hurt your friends, so I'm not worried about Aang's close attack hurting Katara. His staff twirl. Oh, I've made a huge mistake. Close attack is not the same as burst attack. Close just means somebody next to you. So I'm going to move Katara back and Aang back. Take away that air. So I'm going to use the two basic Aang cards to do a range attack. You can shoot through your friends, just not your enemies. So we'll shoot through Katara without hurting her in order to hit that Fire Nation soldier, putting their strength from 4 down to 3. Then I'm going to use the Appa to move Katara and Aang. And I think I can do them in either order, or they can kind of share space during the resolution of the move. Actually, let's have Katara go up here. And now we can use the staff twirl. Now he can do a close attack, hit somebody next to him for 2. That brings the Fire Nation soldiers down to 1. So only one more hit needed, but unfortunately Aang's just got one more basic card. Probably just add the air tile somewhere. Maybe that same spot up here. I don't know where we're going to want it, but I may as well place one down just in case. Flip his tile to the Lotus side. I feel like I was so close to taking out the Fire Nation soldiers, but as it is, that will end the hero part of the round. And I actually skipped an important step. So after Katara's turn, I should have flipped one of these 6 challenge tokens. I've already shuffled these around, and so I don't know what order they're in, but we're going to flip one of these, and it's blank. So when all 6 are gone, we will place one of the blank ones onto this 1 XP space, which is covering up that XP, and then giving us 5 to put back face down and mix up for the next 5 player turns, after which point all of them will be face up. One of the blank ones will go onto this 1 XP spot, and then they all get turned back down face over, and we have 4 left. When all of those are revealed, one of them would have to go onto this space, and if that happens, the players lose. So we can run out of time here. And if we win and we're playing a campaign, the number of remaining visible 1 XP spaces is how much XP the characters get. So we want to do it. We want to win as fast as possible. So after Katara's turn, we flipped one. Now that Aang's done, we're going to flip a second one. That one is also blank. And then we can flip one of these enemy cards and see what happens. So the top, that icon is the Fire Nation soldier icon. So they move 3 toward the highest strength hero and then burst attack 2. We can resolve them in the order we want. The burst attack is the attack everybody around you thing that I thought Aang was going to be able to do, but basically this Fire Nation soldier is going to be attacking the 8 spaces in that square around him, which includes Aang. He's already next to Aang, so he doesn't need to move. Katara has the same amount of strength. They both started at 8, so we could actually choose his target, but I'm just going to let him hit Aang here. And he's in position to hit him, so he doesn't need to move, which means he's not going to be hitting Katara because she is not in that burst. But that doesn't mean Aang is going to lose 2 strength and go from 8 down to 6. We need to resolve the other Fire Nation soldier as well. And now the highest strength hero is Katara, so he's going to move to Katara directly. He could move up to 3 in order to get to her, but he only had to move 1 because, again, I was kind of reckless and just running in there. And again, a burst attack is not going to include Aang because it's just the 8 spaces around him, and he's not going to hit his friend, so 2 damage to Katara will also put her down to 6. Now, the next thing that happens is the Fire Nation Benders move 1 away from the closest hero, and once this round, Fire Tiles move 2 and burst attack 1. All right, so a few things going on here. So each of the Fire Nation Benders is going to move away from the closest hero. Katara is technically closest, but they can just move away wherever. I think they don't get hurt by fire. Fire is actually the one element that does have a special rule. I'm going to say that they don't hurt themselves, so he's not going to walk into the fire. I don't have a rules back up on the top of my head, but for now, that feels like the correct thing to do. And then it's once this round, which means regardless of how many Fire Nation Benders are on the board, this part is only going to happen once. So unlike the soldiers who each got to attack, the Benders are only going to move all of the fire, basically collective action among the Benders. They're moving all the fire tiles 2, and then they burst attack 1. So the fire will move 2 spaces and 2 spaces. This one here did not end up, nobody's in that burst. Although I guess I could have moved it diagonally to there. All right, I just double checked, and yeah, the fire does not hurt the enemies in the game. It only hurts heroes, which makes sense since none of the 4 heroes in this game are firebenders. Presumably all the firebenders who are in the game are enemies and don't hurt each other. So if you've seen the series, you might hope for an expansion or something that adds a 5th hero who might be a firebender, but currently that is not the case. So that will resolve the benders, and then Zuko will move the closest hero 3 enemies toward himself and then burst attack. The closest is Katara, so 1, 2, 3, and then a burst attack 2 is not going to hit her because she is not next to him. And the flag, I don't actually know what that means. So this symbol here matches Zuko's symbol. This one matches the Fire Nation benders, and this one matches the soldiers. But these cards here are doing double duty because they apply to whatever scenario you're playing, which are going to have different mixes of characters in them. So give them a pass on the ambiguity of that flag there. I assume it's for a different scenario or other scenarios where maybe there's like different objectives moving around. But that will resolve this card, which means we've also finished the round. Both my characters are now down to 6, and I really don't want them to hit 4 because they would get wounds, which are semi-permanent throughout the campaign. So at the very least, I should be able to get rid of these soldiers and then maybe run away from fire and benders and whatnot, especially since both my characters are ranged. Now, technically, both characters should have drawn their hands for the next turn, but it hasn't mattered as far as I can tell. So let's just assume the remainder of their deck, which is 5 more cards, are in their hands. And I'm going to roll to randomly determine who's going to go first. Again, with Aang being odd. So Katara will go first again. Get her hand. Man, I feel like Katara's powers are pretty strong for being able to move people around. I actually got 3 cards here that affect water tiles, and 2 of them move the water tile. And with her ability, Element of Change, we could be moving people around and potentially throwing them off the boat, but I get bonuses for actually defeating them, or in Zuko's case, getting him down to infinity health. So I kind of really want those bonuses. As exciting, as tantalizing as throwing Zuko off the boat is, pretty sure she could actually do it this turn if she wanted to. But instead, R is actually really strong. She's going to help me with my concerns about strength here. I can place a water tile close to her, so I'll just drop one over here just so you can barely not see it. But then she gets to range attack 1 and heal any hero 1. And I think we'll have her heal herself up to 7. And with the range attack 1, she can shoot this guy. So there's this air in between them, but he is not next to her. You can't actually use a range attack on a close enemy, meaning next to you, but she can use a range attack there because he's not next to her. And it's going to do 1 more damage, which reduces the Fire Nation soldier strength track down to 0, which means he's removed, and this one is also defeated. So I've completed half my objective and resolved the water whip. The other half is the benders. I'm going to play Stream the Water, move 1 water tile 5 spaces, and I'm going to move the one that I've just placed into her space, then into this bender space, and then into the backspace there. And because of her ability, after she moves a water tile through a hero or enemy, she can place them on top of that tile. So we're going to wash this guy up to the bow of the ship and then heal any hero 1. So she'll choose herself, going up to the maximum of 8, which is nice. So she's back up. Can also play Healing Surge, move a water tile 2 spaces, then heal 1 hero it moved through 2. And that's going to have to be this tile here to move into Aang's space. And I can move it too. There is a rule that within the scope of a single action, something cannot move back and forth from the same position. I forget if that applies to element tiles rather than just heroes and enemies. For example, I know if a hero were moving 2, you would not be allowed to go 1, 2. But since the water tile was here, I'm moving it to here, and I kind of want it to carry Aang back with it to there. But I'm just going to assume I'm not allowed, and that back and forth rule also applies to element tiles. So, but we could be able to go look 1, 2, for example. I think that should be fine. And again, using Element of Change to move a hero or enemy that water moved through. And then Aang can heal for 2 because the Healing Surge water moved through his space. So he is also back up to the maximum of 8. Very nice work, Katara. She's got 2 basic action cards left. We'll spend them to do a range attack, shooting the bender there for 1 damage. So the bending track moves from 6 down to 5. That ends her turn. She needs to shuffle now because her deck is empty. And this is where the people might see the similarity to deck building games. There tends to be that card velocity of drawing 5 and playing 5 cards every turn in a lot of the deck building genre. So get her next hand ready and flip one of these. And this time we got a symbol. And that symbol matches this space here on the board. It says regroup. Enemies each move 2 away from the hero's starting spaces. Well, they're all the way backed up against the wall. So I think it's just this bender who has any space to go. We've got them completely backed up there. And then Aang can take his turn. We got him locked away in a corner. I should have moved Katara away, but I imagine those 3 remaining characters are benders anyway. They're probably going to be shooting more than hitting. And I got some more healing too. This game is pretty friendly with the health. Gentle Breeze, heal 1 for each air tile that is at least 4 spaces away. I wonder if it means within 4 spaces, or if, because the way it's worded, they have to be far away from him. But I would have assumed with the thematically you'd want to be closer to them, so within 4 spaces. Currently there are no air tiles that are 4 spaces away from him. In fact, on the entire map, the only spaces that are 4 away, or are more than 4 away, or at least 4 away, are 3 enemies there in the back. Everybody else, every other tile is within 4 of Aang. So that double makes me think this card is worded incorrectly. Fortunately, he doesn't need the healing, but that basically means we're just going to have to use this card as a basic action of some sort. And because I do kind of want these bonus points from Zuko, I think I'm just going to shoot range attacks this turn. We're going to use Momo as a double basic action to do 1 to Zuko. We got a straight shot there at him. We got Gentle Breeze and a basic card for 1 more, and a glider and a basic card for 1 more. The glider would let him move to any air tile, but he's just lined up there to hit Zuko in the face a few times, so we'll just do it like that. Reshuffle and draw for next turn. Flip a tile, and we got another symbol here. This one is a surprise wave. Heroes each move 2 toward any of their starting spaces. So the boat is rocking, and we just move 2 backward, I guess. Think I'm okay with that. Gets us a little bit farther away from the enemies during their round, which happens now. And first up is Zuko. Move the highest strength hero 4 toward him. Highest strength is a tie, and this is where I would definitely say the game is pretty friendly, because if I move Katara 4 toward him, she's going to get hit for 2 damage. But I can choose Aang, and he's farther away, he will not get hit. So I think if you wanted to play this game on a higher difficulty, you might choose to resolve these according to like a dire rule rather than a friendly rule. But in this case, I'll go ahead and move Aang 4, 1, 2, 3, 4 toward Zuko, then move the closest hero 5 toward the fire tile furthest from this enemy. So I guess we can just choose to do either one of these. We'll do this guy first. The fire tile furthest from him is here. The closest enemy is Aang, so he needs to move 5 toward that fire tile. 3 spaces will put him into the fire tile, which means he takes a damage and goes down to 7. And then the other bender will go. It doesn't say once per round this time, so both benders get to do the same thing. Move the closest hero, now Katara, 5 toward the fire tile furthest. That would be this one with Aang, but they can't both be in the same space, so I think she gets to avoid the damage that way, as far as I can tell. Then finally, the Fire Nation soldiers would activate, but they are all gone, which means we can proceed with round 3. Start by choosing our hero. 6 even again is Katara. Let's see how much damage we can do to Zuko. I mean, we don't actually win when we get him down to infinity, the replacement for the 0 there, but we do end the scenario and can no longer keep playing if we get the benders down to 0. So I do want to get Zuko down to that last space before finishing off the benders. So now Katara is lined up to shoot Zuko, and I've got a couple of these pairs of starting cards. I got 2 and 2 more. I think I'm going to spend all 4 of those to do 2 range attacks. So she can take 2 shots straight up the aisle there at Zuko, reducing him from 3 down to 1. And then her last card is Appa. She and another hero each move 1, so she can move Aang into position there, so he can make that last shot hopefully on his turn, and maybe she'll move a little bit closer, I suppose, to get in line with the bender for next time, maybe. That will finish her turn, so we flip another tile, and this one's blank, so nothing happens, and can take his turn. So with 2 basic action cards, we can do a range attack to hit Zuko down to the would-be 0 space, but instead it's infinity, so he's not actually removed. And now we want to get those benders off the table as much as possible. So Momo, of course, is 2 actions. But let's use Appa first to move Aang in line with that bender, and maybe just move Katara up 1. Then we can use Momo to do a 2-point, or use him as 2 cards to do 1 ranged attack. And that leaves Aang with this staff twirl, which is, he's got to be in melee, close attack to do 2 damage. Normally I don't like saving cards between turns, but in this case I think I'm actually just going to hold on to this one. Otherwise we could move 1, or we could make move an arrow around somewhere. But being able to do 2 damage, I think is good enough to hold on to that, which means as he ends his turn, he's only going to draw 4 more cards to fill up his hand. He also didn't heal this turn, but only Aang took 1 damage. When he does end his turn, though, we have to flip the 6th and final one of these tokens, which is another thing. Oh, I think he should have drawn up immediately. So he does have 5. And this token here actually means everybody draws a card. That's not on the sheet. That is just in the rule book, that this token means all the heroes get to draw, which is nice. So Aang got 6 cards. So that kind of evened out. Katara should have drawn 5 to end her turn, which means in order to draw 1, she needs to reshuffle and then draw a 6th card from there. But because we flipped all 6 tiles, one of the blank ones needs to go on this space. So now when we win, or if we win, we do not get one of those 3 potential experience points, unfortunately. If I hadn't focused down Zuko, pretty sure we could have done it. So hopefully that will be worth it. So now these remaining 5 need to get mixed up and prepared. But since that was the last hero turn of the round, we're going to resolve another one of these. And we've got Zuko going first. Move 4 toward the highest strength hero and burst attack 2. Highest strength is Katara, which is interesting. Again, because I get to choose, I can move him 4. I can move him just 3 to there, and now Aang is not in the burst attack. If I were using a dire rule, I could have him move to here next to Katara, and then the burst attack would hit both of them. So another key difference there. But I'm going to do that and hit Katara for 2 down to 6. Then the benders activate. Place the closest fire tile under the furthest hero, and they discard a card. Well, technically, because of the diagonal rules being equivalent, diagonals are equal to orthogonal movements. So there's nobody closer than anybody else. Like either of these benders could get to either of the heroes in the same number of moves, which means I basically just get to choose. And I definitely don't want Katara to take 2 because she would hit 4, which would mean she takes a wound, which is not nice. So I'm just going to have them each take 1. Although technically this fire tile is going to be the furthest each time. So we'll move 1 to Katara. She'll take a wound. And the other bender will move this to Aang, and he will take 1, or rather not take a wound, but lose strength. I guess I could have chosen Aang twice, but basically, I mean, one of them is going to be at 6 and one of them is going to be at 5. And then, of course, there are no soldiers, so we can skip that. They both need to discard a card, though, and it doesn't take much effort to determine that these basic starting cards would be the choice. Now, if anybody did have a wound, when you do take a wound, when you get your strength down to 4, you take one of these wounds. There's a nice big stack of them over here, and you will put it on top of your deck, which means next time you draw any cards, that wound is going to be among them. And that card stays in your deck throughout the campaign. There are opportunities to remove cards from your deck entirely, and you can choose wounds, but otherwise you'll be taking it from challenge to challenge. When you discard cards, for example, just now in that example, the benders had us discard a card, you can choose to discard wounds. You can also choose to discard wounds at the end of your turn so that you can refill your hand to a bigger hand size, but you cannot use wounds for other effects. For example, you cannot spend wounds to activate these basic actions, which is a big downside. And even these blank cards, these starting cards, are more powerful than a wound because they can be used on basic actions. So in this next round, let's go ahead and roll up who's first. And still Katara, she's going first all the way through. And now Zuko is in the way of her being able to shoot. So if I want her to be able to hit one of these benders, I might need her to move over to here. Diagonals are allowed, so she could go like around Zuko, but then she could hit diagonally here or just straight here. Or I could just do something like this, stream the water, move 1 water tile 5 spaces, and heal any hero 1. So I could take this water here and go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and since it moved through Zuko, I can have it carry him over there. And then the heal 1 can bring Katara back to 6. We've got a straight shot on the bender now, but I kind of want to throw Zuko off the boat. We got him down to the symbol, so I can kind of get a little prestige just for myself to throw him off the boat as well. So I'm going to spend a card just for a movement and go to here. I'm going to use this water whip just to... Oh, actually, no, I'm going to use Momo. I forgot. An interact action is a 2 cost. So I got to discard 2 cards, but Momo counts as 2. And we're going to do that to interact with the ability printed on the board we looked at to move 1 enemy 1 space. and threw Zuko over the edge of the boat. So we got his health all the way down and threw him off. Oh, now she's not in line with the enemies anymore. So I'm going to say I did this first. Water Whip, place a water tile close to her, range attack 1, and heal any hero. We'll heal Aang this time. And I guess we'll just say we had moved, or no, the water was afterward. We'll say we'll move this water that's off screen here over to her where she was. Maybe there. I think that's reasonable. And a range attack from where she was standing, we can hit the bender down to 3. And we'll use a healing surge to move a water 2 spaces, and we'll put that water into Aang's space. The water and fire can be together, and he gets to heal 2. Although that puts him up to 8, which means I wasted one of the healing, but I'm not going to rewind that because I already rewound a lot of stuff, and I don't feel bad about it. But we'll just leave it as it is there. So that's Katara's turn. She got to throw Zuko over the side of the boat. We'll flip a tile. It is blank, so nothing happens. Aang can take his turn, and can he do 3 damage? That does seem a little hard, but I think we can. So I'm going to spend 2 cards to do a 1 range attack with his basic ability. Bring the straight line there, bring the benders down to 2. Then I'm going to spend 1 card to do his air nomad ability. As a basic action, he can discard 1 card to place an air tile anywhere. We'll take this one over to here. His glider will let him move on top of any air tile to there, and then we can play the staff twirl that I saved to do a close attack 2 for 2 damage, bringing them down to 0, and they're gone. So here it says, after the battle, will you choose to visit Kyoshi Island, a secluded place known for its warrior women and giant elephant koi fish? Or B, will you sneak into the Fire Nation so that Aang may speak with Avatar Roku at the Fire Temple? Turn to page 6 or 7. So you get to choose which of those 2 paths you want to take. So one playthrough of the campaign will not take you to every challenge. Some of these prompts down here, I did look ahead a little bit, will have you look at one of these challenge cards where different things can happen. The one on the top of the deck says the King of Omashu, so we won't spoil any more of that. But these challenge cards have you do, or encounter cards have you do, I think what are called encounters, which are actually like little side mini games that are, some of them are logic or dexterity based that use these element tiles. They all have numbers 1 through 3 on the back, and there are a few little mini games. Now I would do one now, except for I'm not being prompted to do one. In this case, I did not get an encounter card. I just got a choice of which challenge to go to next. And I think I'll choose to go to Kyoshi Island on page 4 and 5. Let's just take a look at what that looks like. Just a glance. All right, we'll go back. But yeah, that would be what we do next time. Although I guess what you could note that it does have one of these 5 symbols filled in with red instead of gray, indicating a slightly more difficult than the 5 gray that this first scenario was. So if you wanted to play that scenario as a standalone, you can. And there are rules that kind of tell you how to get your character up to speed, up to strength for a slightly more challenging scenario. But that's basically what we're going to be doing as we resolve the end of that challenge as part of a campaign. So I'm going to bring out this tracker, which has Team Avatar Experience at the top and Fire Nation Dominance at the bottom. And they're both trackers from 0 to 20. And certain spaces on these trackers are colored, which trigger certain events. So in this case, I had covered this one, which means I'm going to get 1, 2 XP. And that applies to the Team Avatar Experience track, moving from 0 up to 2. And I did pass this green square here, which says gain an action card. So each hero will gain 1 action card. And because of these bonus objectives I did, defeated all Fire Nation soldiers and benders, rather than throwing off the side of the ship, I suppose, and lower Prince Zuko's strength to the infinity symbol. For the first one there, I got -1. And for the second one, I got -2, and that's referring to the Fire Nation dominance. So I get to take it from 20 down to 17. And that passed a purple square, which means I get to gain an ally card. There are also the gray squares on the tracks. When you hit those, you get to remove a card from your character's deck, and those might be one of these basic starting cards. Your deck becomes slightly stronger when you remove weaker cards from it. And if you did have any wounds, this would be an opportunity to choose to remove the wound instead. But I didn't hit a gray mark, so I'm not removing anything. I will be adding a card, so every hero gets to add a card. And for that, each character has a bunch of extra options outside their starting decks. So I'll also be upgrading the decks for Sokka and Toph as I continue playing the campaign. I might want to switch around characters. The rules don't specifically cover switching characters between challenges within a campaign, but it seems easily enough. As long as you remember to give all of your heroes all the rewards they are owed, you can play with any player count or any character swaps during each challenge with no effect as far as I can tell. So I'm shuffling up all of Aang's bonus cards here, and then I'm going to draw 2 of them, and I get to choose 1. And because I didn't remove any cards, well, the one I choose is going to be Aang's 11th card, which slightly changes the card flow over the course of the game. So you saw that we started with 10, we drew 5, played them all, next turn drew 5, played them all, next turn we had to reshuffle for 5 more. So having an 11th card slightly changes that flow, but it doesn't change any other rules. So let's see what these 2 options are. He can get Free Spirit after this card is discarded for any reason, which as far as I could tell would include these basic actions, or certainly his Air Nomad ability. He does 2 free basic actions, so it's basically a third. It's basically a Momo +1. It counts as 3 basic actions. You can do it as part of cost as one of the cards, and then 2 more for free. Or he does 2 free basic actions? Or this card counts as 2 toward resolving a basic action. For example, could he do 2 ranged attacks? The way it's worded, I would think he would be allowed to do that. He gets 2 free basic actions, not he gets 2 points toward paying for basic actions. So it seems like I could, for example, spend this card to move 1 and then shoot off 2 range attacks all with this single card, which is very powerful and much stronger than anything in his starting deck. Or we can get a very early Earthbending. I say early referring to when Aang actually ended up learning Earthbending in the series. But we can place an Earth tile anywhere and then tiles on that space, each close attack 1. So he gets to put Earth anywhere. And if you've stacked up elements, maybe multiple Earth or any other elements, each of them would do a close attack 1, which means each one gets to hit 1 enemy next to them. So that can be also a very powerful attack. And that sounds, I mean, I really like the Free Spirit, but I kind of like the idea of stacking up element tiles. It also sounds challenging because you need to get a nice big stack of elements and they all need to be next to enemies. But you know what? I want to do it. Let's try to stack up some elements with Earthbending. So the Earthbending is going to go into Aang's deck here, and the Free Spirit is going to go back. And then we'll do the same thing for Katara. Again, I'll do Sokka and Toph off camera. But if you stay tuned, I plan to play Challenge 2 using those 2 characters, and then you can see what card they got and how it fits into their starting deck. So 2 cards for Katara are Fiercely Protective and Maelstrom. Fiercely Protective says, this turn when Katara does a heal action, she does a range attack of the same value. And we saw 3 heal effects in her starting deck. One of them was for 2 and the other 2 were for 1. So getting to do a range attack for 2 seems very powerful if you draw it alongside the Healing Surge. Or Maelstrom, burst attack 1. So all the enemies around her take 1 damage. Then she moves each close enemy 3 spaces. Also extremely powerful. She gets to hit everyone around her and then just move them anywhere we want. You know what? That one just sounds more fun for me. So I'm going to take the Maelstrom. Fiercely Protective seems very good as well. But we'll put that back into her deck. And maybe we'll see those on a future level up. The last thing was because we hit a purple on the Fire Nation Dominance by moving it backward. We crossed that 19 in purple, so we get an ally. The ally cards are these little guys here, counting 9 of them. And we're just going to shuffle them up and gain 1. Sorry, it's the same as the player cards. We're going to draw 2 and gain 1. We can choose which ally we've befriended, either the Blue Spirit or Master Paku. So Master Paku says, this round, add 1 to each heal action done by a hero. And the way these work is we're going to set them off to the side of the game board for future challenges, and at any point during a player's turn, they can use the ally's effect and flip the ally card face over, and it'll be consumed for the rest of the challenge. You can only use it, one hero can use it once per challenge. So Master Paku can increase healing, but it's to each heal action. So if we saw a healing turn like we saw from Katara just now, that could be even more. Or we could take the Blue Spirit, who says this round, basic action attacks do +1 damage, and fire tiles do -1 damage. So the players don't have to worry about fire. And I think those basic action attacks, that would be for both range attacks and close attacks. So that seems really strong, especially since everybody can do attacks, but only Katara can do heals, or at least no, Aang had a heal too. But I think the damage is better. I'm going to take the blue spirit. Next time it'll be Sokka and Toph at the island of Kyoshi. So that's it for now. Thanks for watching. Thanks for subscribing, and bye.